Paramahamsa Virajagacharya Astotra Satashi Śrimad Abhay Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Śrila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Virajagacharya Astotra Satashi Śrimad Śrila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Śrila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Brajbhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Mathura Navadip Mayadhur Dham ki Shri Purushottam Shakar Jagannath Puri Dham ki Ganga Maya Yamuna Maya Bhakti Devi ki Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki Samvera Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru, Shri Guranga, August Shri Prabhupada ki. Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayet Nashta Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we're reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 9 and 10. We'll do 9 together, and then we can read 10. Akalpasvanga chesthayam Shakuntha iva panjare Tatra labdha smriti devat Karma janma shatodbhavam Smaram dhirgham manuchvasam Sharma kim nama vindate Akalpasanga chesthayam Sakunta iva panjare Tatra labdha smriti devat Karma janma shatodbhavam Smaran dirgham manuchvasam Sharma kim nama vindate. Okay, let's just wait for this to come up. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Can't see where my mouse is. There it is. How's that? A little bit bigger? That's as big as I can get it. There we go. How's that? One more time. Akalpasvanga chesthayam Shakuntha iva panjare Tatra labdha smriti devat Karma janma shatobdhavam Smaram dirgham manuchvasam Sharma kim namu vindite. Please chant. Akalpasvanga cheshtayam Shakunta iva panjare Tatra labdha smritir daivat Karma janma shatobhavam Smaran dirgham manuchvasam Charma kim nama vindite. Akalpasvanga cheshtayam Shakunta iva panjare Tatra labdha smritir daivat Karma janma shatodbhavam Smaran dirgham manuchvasam Sharma kim nama vindate. Akalpasvanga cheshtayam Shakunta iva panjare Tatra labdha smritir daivat Karma janma shatodbhavam Smaran dirgham manuchvasam Sharma kim nama vindate. So we can continue to the synonyms. Akalpa, unable. You're ready to see, you can hear. Svanga, cheshtha, his limbs. Cheshtayam, to move. Shakuntha, a bird. Iva, like. Panjare, in a cage. Tatra, there. Labdha smriti, having gained his memory. Devat, by fortune. Karma, activities. Janma shata udbhavam, occurring during the last 100 births. Smaran, remembering. Dirgham, for a long time. Anuchvasam, sighing. Sharma, peace of mind. Kim, what? Nama, then. Vindate, can he achieve? Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he could remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Purport. After birth, the child may forget the difficulties of his past lives, but when we are grown up, we can at least understand the grievous tortures undergone at birth and death by reading the authorized scriptures like Śrimad Bhāgavatam. If we do not believe in the scriptures, that is a different question. But if we have faith in the authority of such descriptions, then we must prepare for our freedom in the next life. That is possible in this human form of life. One who does not take heed of these indications of suffering in human existence is said to be undoubtedly committing suicide. It is said that this human form of life is the only means for crossing over the nations of Maya or material existence. We have a very efficient boat in this human form of body, and there is a very expert captain, the spiritual master. The scriptural injunctions are like favorable winds. If we do not cross over the ocean of the nations of material existence in spite of all these facilities, then certainly we are all intentionally committing suicide. I was assigned the next verse as well, so I'll just chant this by myself and we can read the translation in purport. Arabhya saptaman masa labdha popi vepita nekatraste suti vater vishtha bhur iva shodhara. Thus endowed with the development of consciousness from the 7th month after his conception, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place. Purport. At the end of the 7th month, the child is moved by the bodily air and does not remain in the same place, for the entire uterine system becomes slackened before delivery. The worms have been described here as Shodhara. Shodhara means born of the same mother. Since the child is born from the womb of the mother, and the wombs are also born of fermentation within the womb of the same mother, under the circumstances, the child and the wombs are actually brothers. We are very anxious to establish universal brotherhood among human beings, but we should take into consideration that even the worms are our brothers. What to speak of other living entities? Therefore, we should be concerned about all living entities. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabhando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusudhe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Adhitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Param Ananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Thank you for attending today's Śrimad Bhāgavatam class. Before I start speaking, I'd like to pray for the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavas that are assembled here. May the right words come at the right time and with the right purpose out of my mouth in glorifications of Śrimad Bhāgavatam. I'm begging for the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, and if I make any mistakes, please feel free to correct me and please forgive me. So we're on this section of third canto, the status quo, 31st chapter, the movements of the living entities, and we're on verse 9 and 10. And this is a very nice chapter actually. In one senior devotee, when I was maybe like 16 years old, he came to Columbus, and I was saying it was my birthday, and I said, what should I do for my birthday? And he recommended me to read this whole chapter on my birthday. And since then, by Krishna's grace, I've been inspired to keep doing that. So every year on my birthday, I just read this chapter, because he was saying that actually you should remember. Actually, there's two proper things to be doing on birthdays, if you look at the Vedic science of it. One thing that we can learn from Krishna's pastimes, when Krishna was born, every time it was his birthday, he would give massive amounts of charity. He would give charity to the Brahmanas, he would feed all the residents of Vrindavan, cows and grains and milk, and all these things were given in charity. And the second thing is we can remember this chapter of how we actually got here. We understand the great distress we feel at death. This is very easy to understand because we see death all around us. People are getting killed every day. We see disease all around us. We had so many diseases like flu and COVID and all this. It kills many people. And then we have birth, death, disease, old age, how gradually the body cripples. First you had a full head of hair down to the shoulders, then you only have a little bit of hair, then it's gray hair, then your teeth start falling out, and then you see actually the disaster that we're going through. But necessarily we've kind of painted this picture in the material world that birth is actually very nice. Oh, it's so beautiful. Now they have big parties. They're called, I was invited to one actually when I was younger, gender reveal parties. You've seen this? They have these things called gender reveal parties where the mother and father, they come together and they have like these streamers or something, those guns that shoot the colors, and then if it shoots blue, it's a boy, if it shoots pink, it's a girl. But we don't actually, we put lipstick on a pig of what birth is. And Shri Kapil Muni is actually describing what is the baby going through. The baby is going through this. It's in this verse, in verse 9, it is saying that it is like a bird in a cage without freedom of movement. And this is actually so, imagine if we were in a cage, we're in prison, which is actually worse. But if you put a bird in a cage, it's actually even worse. Why? Because the bird can walk, but also the bird can fly. It can go not just on the x-axis, it can also go on the y-axis. We can't even go on the x. So imagine how limited the bird must be feeling without freedom of movement. So we just went through this section of the previous chapter, 30th chapter, the hellish types of realities of this world that are forced upon living entities, and because he has the consequences of his actions. Now, but what comes after this chapter, when we discuss the various hellish conditions of life, you get a big congratulations. Yes, you're a body. You get a body now. Amazing. You get a body based on what's left in your karmic bank balance. After you suffer all the different types of reactions that your past life have required, now you have a certain amount of bank balance left, and amazing, you get another body. In one sense, these descriptions are quite difficult to hear. Some, maybe not a, maybe I was young when I read it, maybe not a PG-16, maybe a PG-18, like how those movies are rated R, PG-13, something like that. Maybe they're not something we don't like to think about every day. But there's a reason why Kapila Muni is saying this. But even though these are so difficult to hear, we must understand that this human form of life is one of the most rare and fortunate things. And this is a very interesting dichotomy that the Bhagavatam is saying. So compare this verse to, where's my mouse? I want to pull up this other verse, 11:9, 29. Labdva sudhurlabam idam sambhuvante manusham artadam api nityam apihadira turnam patet na patet anumrityu yavan nishreyasya vishaya khalu sarvatasyat. It is saying in this verse, after many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for the human being. So, we're talking about how bad this human form of life is by taking birth into it. You're being pushed by the force, and then 7 months you're being eaten by worms, and you're being tormented by the nasty things that the mother puts in her body, like chilies, which burn the skin of the baby. All these descriptions are there, but actually, this human form of life is the most rare. And Srila Prabhupada is alluding in the purport of our original verse to a very nice verse in the Bhagavatam, same canto, 11th canto. Nirdeham adhyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvat teritam puman bhavadhim nataret sa atmaha. Atmaha is very significant in this verse. Atmaha means killer of the soul. Who is a killer soul? The killer of the soul, the human body which can award all benefit in life. Nirdeham adyam sulabham sudurlabham. Sudurlabham means very, very rare. We saw it in the previous verse. But what do we have? We have a plavam sukalpam guru karnadharam. Guru is the karnadhar, means the one who is the captain of the ship. And sukalpam, it's very amazing that Srila Shukadeva Goswami is using this word sukalpam. Sukalpam means like perfect. Sukalpam means extremely well suited for its purpose. What is the purpose of sukalpam? Guru karnadharam maya anukulena nabhasvata iritam puman bhava abdhim na taret sa atmaha. And what are the winds that are carrying this boat? The instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize his human life to cross over the ocean of material existence must be considered Atmaha, the killer of the soul. You may think that this is contradicting the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says the soul doesn't die, but it's talking about the purpose of like not looking out for your own self-interest. The self-interest of the soul. So in this way, we have so many different gifts that are given to us. This body is actually a gift. Even though we went through a lot of pain, it's a defect of life. One hand, Bhagavatam is saying that the body's frailties, it's being pushed, and there are worms when it's born, and then it's going through so many things and how awful this body is. But on the other hand, it's propounding that it is a perfectly constructed boat. Perfectly constructed boat. It's reminding of something that Srila Prabhupada said, is this mature world is like a perfectly constructed prison. It's like a prison. Okay, there's suffering in the prison, but it's a place of reformation. It's not a place where if it's perfectly built, it's comfortable or something like that. It is meant for you to learn the lesson and move on. But so we see this dichotomy in the Bhagavatam. We further see this discussed in Canto 5 of Śrimad Bhāgavatam. when it's talking about the different planets, we have the residents of Jambudweep. And the residents of Jambudweep are discussing what is the best place to live. You know, many people discuss, is this place the best place to live, this place the best place to live? And they conclude that the best place to live in this whole Brahmanda is Bharatvarsha. Bharatvarsha can mean two different things. Bharatvarsha, Srila Prabhupada sometimes translated as India. Bharatvarsha is also can mean the place where all humans reside. So that means wherever humans are there, that can be considered Bharatvarsha. And I'll just pull up the verse, 5:19:28. And we can read this together. It's actually quite nice. Yes. This is you can read this verse. We are now living in the heavenly planets, undoubtedly as a result of our having performed ritualistic ceremonies, pious activities, and yagyas, and having studied the Vedas. However, our lives here will one day be finished. We pray that at that time, if any merit remains in our pious activities, we may again take birth in Bharatvarsha as human beings, able to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord is so kind that He personally comes to the land of Bharatvarsha and expands the good fortune of its people. So you can see even these people living in the heavenly planets are praying to take birth on the earthly platform, on Bharatvarsha as humans. Because it is, why would we not like the heavenly planets? Because you get intoxicated with so much happiness. And I was discussing with somebody from Europe, one of my friends in England. He's originally from Sweden. And I was asking him, why these countries like Sweden, Denmark, and all these Northern European countries, they're considered to be the happiest countries in the world. And I was saying, isn't it so nice to live there? And he said, yes, these are the happiest places in the world, in the World Happiness Index, but they're actually the most atheistic countries in the world. And I was asking, how can this be that they're so happy in the World Happiness Index, but they're considered the most atheist? Is because they're intoxicated by material opulence. They make the conclusion that the government's providing for this, the government's providing this, there's nature, this. Oh, I don't need God in my life to make for me to be happy. I can just be happy with material things. But Krishna has a way, as is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, that either you surrender to Krishna or you surrender to Krishna at the time of death. So if you're so happy, why do you have to die? Why is it forced upon you? So in that way, people may say that they're happy, but actually they're suffering these threefold Adi Bhautik, Adi Devik, and Adhyatmic kleshas. So this, even though it's the heavenly planets, it's so nice, but you get intoxicated by it and you get attached to it, and then you fall up and down. What is this? Brahma bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna mamupetya tukantaya punar janma na vidyate. Brahma bhuvana loka, from Brahma's planet, bhuvana loka, to the lower planet. Punar avartino arjuna. There is repeated birth and death. It'll just keep going on and on. But mamupetya tukanteya, you attain my planet, Krishna's planet. Punar janma na vidyate. The great sages understand that you will never take birth again. So this is the issue with the heavenly planets. Now, what is the issue with the hellish planets? Because there's so much suffering there that you're not able to think about higher topics. Like I was hearing Srila Prabhupada memories, and I believe, maybe Ramar Prabhu can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Srila Prabhupada was in Philippines or one of these poor countries, and Srila Prabhupada went there, and then they asked, would this be a good place for a temple? And then they said, no. Prabhupada said, no, because they're too poor, and it's because they're not able to fulfill their bodily needs. First of all, they can't even think of where the next meal is coming from, how can they think of something like Krishna consciousness that is much higher? So I remember this pastime. I can forward in the residence group. So in that way, what is the 13th chapter? There's Annamoy, Manamoy, Pranamoy, Jnanamoy, Vigyanmoy, and Anandamoy, right? 5, right? So if you're not past the Annamoy platform, how can you start thinking about Vigyanamoy and what to speak of Anandamoy, of happiness? So in that way, the hellish planets are actually not such a good place to perform devotional service. This Bharat Varsha is actually quite amazing because it is not too heavenly and not too hellish. It's right like Goldilocks, and it's like the bed's too soft. Oh, this is just right. You just get the perfect amount of suffering and the perfect amount of enjoyment. But it's still binding. It'll still make you try to forget that you keep going on. Okay, I get born, then I go to school, and I go to school, I get a job. After a job, I get a wife, and then after I get a wife, kids, and then so on and so forth. And then you forget about, okay, what am I actually doing here in this human form of life? So Srila Prabhupada is stating, if you're not utilizing your time wisely, and you have an appreciation, Prabhupada is saying something amazing in this. It is another thing if you don't believe in the scriptures, but if you have some faith in these scriptures, then you must actually utilize your time wisely and read these amazing sections of the Bhagavatam, which are sobering in thought, And if you don't do that, you are the killer of your own soul, your own self-interest. Hari Hari Bifale Janama Ganoinu Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya Janiya Sunya Visha Kainu. It says, if you do not worship Radha Krishna in this life, Janiya, I understand, Vishaya Kainu. I've heard the right thing. I know it's poison. I've heard it's poison, but I'm still drinking it, So it's like drinking poison, and people waste so much time in this world. Actually, one of these stages of spiritual life is called avyartha kalatvam. Avyartha kalatvam means they do not waste even a single moment. This is a standard among pure devotees, is that when they have a moment, it's not that they're scrolling on Facebook or scrolling on Instagram. They're not necessarily just talking gossip with others. Every single moment is utilized in remembering Krishna and memorizing a verse or reading Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Srila Prabhupada has a very heavy letter where someone says, I have a lot of free time. And Srila Prabhupada states that if you have free time, even a moment, read Śrimad Bhāgavatam, read Chaitanya Charitamrita. Immerse yourself in these pastimes of Krishna. Shushusho Shadadhanasya Vasudeva Kadharuchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat Shrinvatam Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. Just by hearing the pastimes of the Lord again and again, Hridayantosti Abhadrani, from the heart, all things that are abhadra, which are inauspicious, vidhunoti suhrit satam, are destroyed almost to nil. So we can take valuable instruction from these sections of the Bhagavatam. And you may, some neophytes may say, how can we understand this to be Krishna Katha? Because this is not Krishna's pastimes. We're discussing Sankhya Yoga. We're like seeing, I've heard this argument, Krishna Katha means only Krishna's pastimes with the gopis and the gopas and all these things. But Parikshit Maharaj, if you ever think in the Bhagavatam, you get lost, and like, for example, in the 9th canto, devotees tend to, they've come up to me and they're like, oh, it's just a bunch of lists, chronological lineages, and I don't know how to actually get through this. If you think about it, if it was important enough for Shukadev Goswami to speak this to Parikshit Maharaj on the last 7 days of his life, isn't it important for us to hear also? So this is a very important thing to remember when we are hearing Śrimad Bhāgavatam, is we focus on, we put it in perspective almost. So why is Kapila Muni, Devahuti is asking all these questions about why, about devotional service. Why is he speaking about Sankhya Yoga? Why is he wants to separate everything? So imagine like you have a cake. You know, I give you a nice birthday cake. Maybe I give it to Lloyd because Lloyd's a very nice person. I give you a nice frosted birthday cake. And you're like, oh, thank you very much, Hadai. You're giving me a nice cake. Now, he is attached to that cake. He's attached to the cake because it's so sweet. It has frosting, it has sugar and all this. Now, instead of giving you the baked finished cake, Lloyd, what if I give you maybe like 100 grams of flour, maybe a few pieces, some sugar, and then some baking soda, baking powder. I just give it to you all separated. Will you have as much attachment to the cake? No, right? Because it's not made. So same way, Kapila Muni is using the same principle in Sankhya Yoga. We're attached to the form of the thing. But if we separate these things into its individual elements, actually, it's like, what is it? Divide and conquer. If you divide these little elements into like, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, then there's not much attachment there. And you see the reality of the thing. And then from that, you have detachment from the world. But what does have to be the result to have complete detachment from this world? You need to be attached to Krishna. And so this is what Kapila Muni's conclusion is. So in that respect, we have, Srila Prabhupada is saying that we must utilize our time very wisely. And we lack the drive, the discipline. Actually, we have plenty of time. We've had many devotees come up to us over the years and they say, oh, Prabhu, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to do this, this, and this. But actually, if we look really introspecting in our lives, we have so much time. We have so much time. Lloyd Prabhu, I'm picking on Lloyd because he's easy to pick on. Lloyd Prabhu is from Barbados. And so Lloyd Prabhu, how many hours do you have in Barbados? You have 23 hours? 24. Same. Connor's from California, about 24? There? Yeah. So same thing in New York. We have 24 hours. Now, what do we put inside it? You know, there's a very nice devotee in Columbus. He's a very, very busy person. He's a doctor, a very important person. Does a lot of projects. And one time he was inviting me to a program, and I told him, you know, I really don't have time for this. And he knew my schedule a bit, and he knew I was like bluffing. And then he said, Hari, when I was not initiated, he said, I'll give you one piece of advice that may help you for some time. Never say that you don't have time. Just say that it's not a priority. He said, if we prioritize things, we have time for it, but maybe it's not a priority in our life. So things that we put in our life that we want to prioritize, we make time for it. Like one time I was late for Harinam, and one devotee, I was saying, oh, I ran late. And this devotee came up to me and he said, if I told you that you'd win $1 million if you are at Harinam at 1 p.m., but if you come at 1:01 p.m., you don't have $1 million, you lose the $1 million. Wouldn't you make sure that you're there on Harinam at 1 p.m.? I'm like, yeah, I would actually... I would make sure. And he said, and then he concluded, he's like, Harinam is worth more than $1 million. It's worth not even 1 billion trillion. It's priceless. So in that sense, we should be on time for our the Harinam and whatever scheduled events. It's basically what you budget your time for, what you prioritize, you fit into it. So I was reminded of a story. There was once a lady who was doing a study, and she was studying many busy working people, and she was studying this, that they were asked in the beginning of the week, were they able to volunteer 1 hour of their time every week? And then they were like, oh no, I couldn't volume 1 hour of my time. This family that they had their basement got flooded. And basically they had to volunteer 1 hour of their time to clean up their basement. So they were forced to do it. But if you had to say, oh, can I give time? Can I not give time? They would say, no, I can't give time. But when they were forced to do it, they found time. So that's why for some things in our life, like Srila Prabhupada says in some of his lectures, that devotees should read 1 hour of Śrimad Bhāgavatam a day. Sometimes he says 2 hours, and sometimes he says 4 hours of reading Śrimad Bhāgavatam a day. So we may say we don't have time, but depends on what we put as a priority in our lives. So that's kind of what I had to say. I just wanted to repeat the verse, and then we can maybe have some comments, questions, or maybe some discussion about it. Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31. I'll just say the translations of verse 9 and 10. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Thus endowed with the development of consciousness, from the 7th month after his conception, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy, abominable cavity, he cannot remain in one place. I just want to make one more point. Prabhupada is saying that universal brotherhood about the worms being, I'll just say that. Since the child is born from the womb of the mother, and the worms are also born of the fermentation within the womb of the same mother, under circumstances, the child and the worms are actually brothers. We are very anxious to establish universal brotherhood among human beings, but we should take into consideration that even the worms are our brothers. What to speak of other living entities? And this is that Pandita Samadarshina. You can see everybody as a living entity, and basically like someone in the military, they might be like, oh, I don't want to wake up this morning, but then they see their brothers doing it, and they get very fired up. They're like, oh, my brothers, we're going to wake up this early, and we're going to do some basic camp training and this and that. So same way, Prabhupada is saying, we go to the same situation as a worm. So we must also look at the worm as one of our brothers. So this artificial universal brotherhood, this and that, we should look at it from the soul basis. So just thought that was interesting. Thank you very much. And any questions or comments? We have about 10 minutes.
Prabhu? I have a question or a comment. So you were talking about when I came in about how the demigods were even praying, like, all right, when we leave here, let us get a human body, because although it's miserable, this is explaining a lot about how miserable it is. It can be used for a higher purpose, and it's like the whole world, I can't remember exactly the word you used, but it's like meant for a higher purpose. It's perfectly made, but it's not perfectly made for us to enjoy. It's perfectly made for us to develop or something like that. And it reminded me of a verse in the Bhāgavatam near the end of the 11th canto, which is saying like, this process is the supreme intelligence of the intelligent. Talking about bhakti. Bhakti is like the most intelligent thing you can do. And the cleverness of the most clever. So you guys want to know how it's the most intelligent for the intelligent and the most clever for the clever? Because by making use of the temporary, like our bodies, and the unreal, like all these temporary manifestations, you can make use of it to achieve me, Krishna is talking, the eternal reality.
Can you repeat the translation in entirety?
The process is the supreme intelligence of intelligent and the cleverness of the most clever. For by following it, one can in this very life make use of the temporary and unreal to achieve me, the eternal reality.
Wow. What's the verse?
11:29 something.
Okay, something.
Yeah.
It's like, I was just reminded of that, like, Srila Prabhupada said this mic stand is matter, but immediately when you speak Krishna Katha into the mic or the mic stand, it becomes a spiritual thing. So same way the body, even though made of blood, urine, pus, stool, and all these things, by engaging in pure devotional service or devotional service, you can actually, it becomes spiritualized, and you have a spiritual body at that point. I remember there's one katha by Indra Prabhu. He was saying something like, I was staying in Vrindavan for so long, and I've been taking Mahaprasad for this many years, and so my body has become like a part of Vrindavan because I've stayed in Vrindavan for so long. And that was quite nice. Go ahead, Phil Prabhu.
Yeah, I like your point on happiness, bringing up those countries that I guess their happiness index is high, but the big issue, it's something that I actually heard yesterday from Gauranga Das at the Bhakti Centers. Spirituality allows us to deal with crisis and calamity. And it doesn't matter how happy your country is, some war or some virus or some plague or something will come hit you. And even if the country is good, you could still get cancer. So the happiness is temporary, and if someone foolishly just enjoys that temporary thing, then when the crisis and calamity comes, they won't be able to actually handle it. And you can see that with like the Great Depression in America, where people who had a lot lost it and killed themselves, which a spiritually advanced person would never do. They would be able to handle it, they wouldn't be disturbed. So I think like the happiness thing, if someone doesn't realize that it's temporary, then they could get really comfortable in it, and that becomes dangerous, which I think is similar to the point in the verse that you mentioned about the demigods, why they wanted to take birth as humans.
Yeah.
So I really liked that point.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'm reminded of the verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, na sochati, na kankshati, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim labate param. So in that verse, it's saying that one who is on the level of Brahman, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, na sochati, na kankshati, he neither hankers nor neither laments. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu, is always equipoised. So if one is too happy or one is too distressed, then actually they're on the material platform, but one must be equal. It's like almost, there's a common saying that how do you make somebody who's super happy sad again, and how do you make somebody super sad happy again? What is the one phrase that you can say that will make these both true?
All things must come to pass.
All things must come to go and pass, or temporary, you know. Go ahead, Shikho.
I was just considering the word you used, Atmaha. It comes so many times in the scriptures, you know. In the 10th canto, there is this first chapter and verse 4, Nivrittirta se upagiyamanat. In that shloka also this word comes, Atmaha. You know, one who doesn't hear the glorification of the Lord or wastes his life not utilizing his life for hearing the glories, then he's just not concerned about his soul, you know, he's killing the Atma. And the same Atmaha word comes in Ishopanishad also, second or third verse, you know, where Prabhupada writes that who is not interested in practicing, then he is just killer of the soul. So this word is like so important that, you know, if one is not taking interest in hearing the glories of the Lord, he is like just killing himself actually. Thank you for bringing this point.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we must develop that interest, Prabhu. Yes, Sitaram, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your very wonderful class. I was thinking about all the living entities that is accompanying us all the time, you know, and Srila Satsvarup Ramanara Goswami, he had asked that question to Srila Prabhupada, what's going on with them? Because as you were saying, Ayanja Prabhu was saying, you take the prasad, you smell the air from Vrindavan, it is coming from Varshana and this and that. So you like become spiritualized. So 50 million of us is there chanting Hare Krishna every morning. Is it 50 million living entities you are taking care of by creating that vibration? How come, how they are being, you know, like when we do the Harinam Sankirtan, we said, everywhere there are living entities and they are benefited. If there is someone just appreciate the holy name, they are benefited. And so what about those 50 billion living entities within us? When we take the prasad and we associate with the devotees, how they are really evolving, spiritually? Are they benefited spiritually?
They would get some benefit. If you're on the, Srila Prabhupada says that if you chant Hare Krishna out loud, even the microbes and all these small living entities that have the lives of probably like an hour or 2 hours, even they get benefited. Janma Safalyam. They'll get the fruit of their life just by hearing this mantra. And what to speak of, we have so many living entities just within us, and we can understand that if we are practicing, Prahlad Maharaj, in 2 days from now, I was in Nrsimha, what boon should I ask? Please save my father. And then Nrsimhadev reassures, 100 generations, or no, how many? 10 generations? 21 generations up and down are all liberated just by having a saintly son. So what to speak of, we just by practicing devotional service, generations of living entities can be taken to the platform of perfection. What to speak of even just our own body. So that's what I understand.
And one point I thought about when you were talking about the living entity within the womb, and he is bitten by the worms and so on. So one of the cultural thing I heard is that when the woman is pregnant, she shouldn't be cutting anything. And sometimes if she cuts something, those cut marks comes on the baby.
Wow.
What a way of transferring impression, how impression sanskars are transferred onto this baby that is unborn. So I have heard that they culturally do not cut anything like mangoes and in chicken and whatever they have to cut. The pregnant mother would not cut anything. And if she actually cuts something, sometime later on when the child takes birth, you will see those cut marks on the baby. Mm. We have to be very, very careful when we tread the path in the material world. It seems to be very dangerous. And as more as we realize that these dangers are there, then we might be awakened to the reality of our purpose in the human form of life. Mm-hmm. And again, thank you for your class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Any other last comments? Ramar Prabhu has one.
I'm not aware of that statement. But Prabhupada said this would not be a good place to open a temple. The people are too poor. I'm just hearing that from you for the first time. And to my knowledge, Prabhupada never visited the Philippines.
I think it was a stop. It was one country that he went in the airport, but they wouldn't let him in.
That's Singapore.
Singapore, probably, yeah.
Completely different place.
My bad.
Although Krishna consciousness in the Philippines is developed and quite popular. Several temples.
Yeah.
Initiated devotees.
Okay. Thank you so much. Prantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Radha Govindadev ki, Gaur Premanande.